Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the wonderful collaboration that is Let's Talk Business and the Wrestle Plug. Just one man from each team remains.
It's half the business.
Baby. Aeron Nix, the host of Professional Wrestling's most shithousery podcast. That's me, of course, the host of Wrestle Plug. And joining me is, of course, the brains behind Let's Talk Business. It is Mr. Clean, Anton Green.
We could trash talk now. He's not there. Yeah, the brains and the brawn.
Yeah, sorry. I
got to be both. I got to be both today.
Yeah, where the fuck is he, by the way? Where's Gage?
Yeah, he's a busy man. He's on business.
Yeah, he's always on business, to be fair. On brand.
He's shutting his mouth and he's taking his check.
Exactly. Gage, do me a favour, right? Wherever you are, shut your mouth and collect your paycheck. That's like our new catchphrase, isn't it? I love it. And
it's got to be, yeah.
Yeah, we've already got a T-shirt and we're only about 6 episodes deep. Right, let's get to it. So basically, we're going to do a bit of news, ladies and gentlemen, and then dedicate a nice big fat portion of AEW All In and preview that show. We might separate it for the YouTube channel. So if you listen to this on audio, but you think, oh, I'd rather listen to it or watch it on video, it'll be on the Wrestle Plug YouTube channel as well. But if you want it on audio, it will be available on Wrestle Plug. But head over to Let's Talk Business. They deserve the subs a lot more than we do at this point, if I'm being real. So unfortunately, the most tragic of all news to open up, Terry Funk sadly passed away yesterday. Obviously, it's kind of difficult because he was 79 years old, by the way. Terry Funk is, for many, particularly the old school fans, the greatest wrestler that ever lived. Like, he's up there as one of the all-time great legends. But I think a lot of modern fans, although there's been wonderful tributes pouring out about him, I don't think the modern day fans will probably appreciate, especially the younger fans, would appreciate just how important he was to professional wrestling, especially North America. Just quickly, a lot of tributes. A day I wish would never come, Blue Meanie wrote, sharing a photo of Funk with the ECW roster. Thank you, Terry Funk, for what you did for wrestling. Thank you for helping ECW. Thank you for being kind to me. I love you. Fellow veteran ECW veteran, Lance Storm, obviously paying his tributes. I will say more eventually. This one hits hard. Mick Foley, of course, paid tribute, who is arguably the man who's most intrinsically linked with Terry Funk, at least in the modern era of pro wrestling. And WWE put out a tribute, just basically an overwhelming avenue of love and heartache for the passing of Terry Funk yesterday at the age of 79, one of the all-time greats of pro wrestling. Any memories you have of Terry Funk, Anton? You've been in the business for a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, I think the thing with him as well is he covered different generations, because you got like that very early period, the NWA like world champion, and he kind of reinvented himself a little when he was doing like Middle Aged and Crazy. That was like the late 80s, and then obviously for the ECW sort of launch of ECW, he'd reinvented himself again, and he was kind of like the older statesman for that. So, and I mean, watching him currently, like probably in the 90s, like in WCW when he came in for a little while with the Stud Stable, and then you had like Chainsaw Charlie and his ECW stuff. But yeah, I mean, he was somebody that just, I wouldn't have seen a lot of his earlier footage at the time because he was sort of that generation, like the NWA. But you knew, like, obviously him and Dory were the first like brothers to hold the NWA championship. It was very like it's almost like two different wrestlers. He was able to like reinvent himself, completely. But he was always a bit like, he was known as like the crazy one even during the NWA days. But he was more of like an actual wrestler. And then obviously he just, he could do the hardcore stuff and just the crazy brawls and just take the big bumps and stuff. It was amazing what he achieved, like because he was in his 50s at that point as well.
Yeah. I think, so my first experience of Terry Funk was as Chainsaw Charlie. I was watching WWF from about 93 onwards, and he came in, I believe, 98, around that period, or late 97. The infamous anything that comes out of a box is over. Remember that nonsense? And he comes out, and obviously I didn't know he was Terry Funk because like they were like Chainsaw, and I didn't know who Terry Funk was. If I'm being honest, I'm not one of these marks who's gonna be like, oh yes, I was watching all his Mid-South collection. Like, no, like obviously not. I wasn't old enough to remember that era, and I liked Chainsaw Charlie, but I always thought, even at that age, I was like, not that fast. Until they started pushing him obviously more, and after a while they were like, yeah, it's Terry Funk. they kind of gave up.
Drop the act.
Yeah, because they knew that fucking you're not getting away with it. Now, obviously the first match that I remember him being in that really stood out to me, there were two actually. It's the Street Fighter No Way Out to 98. You remember that? The 4-on-4 match where it's Chainsaw Charlie, Mick Foley, Austin and Owen Hart versus DX. And DX had to sub in
Savio Vega.
I know, right? Like, I love Savio Vega, but what a letdown for the North American audience, man. Like, that match, but then in particular, a match that really opened my eyes. My first real inclination of seeing a proper violent gimmick match was that dumpster match that they had with the New Age Outlaws, which actually for me was an instant classic. I know a lot of people weren't as fans. I loved it, and for that,
I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Once the internet came into play, then all of a sudden I realized, holy shit! You go back and watch like the ECW stuff. I know that I didn't really have access to any good TV. We weren't a rich family, so for me, I was like, didn't see much of ECW until it was on Bravo. By that point, Terry Funk had left.
Same.
So for me, it was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize how but that's the legacy of his career. He was an all-time legend. This incredible Deep South native, and to be able to reinvent yourself for so many different styles, go to Japan and be one of the preeminent deathmatch wrestlers, but yet still be one of the more physical brawlers with that technical side. He did the territories. He did all the great matches, the great technical classics, the great brawls, the great fights, the larger-than-life violent matches. And then he had the death matches. Then he had he just never seemed to be away from wrestling. Like, even up until a few years ago, he's still kind of poking his head in. And then, unfortunately, his health took a turn for the worse. And last year, they reported on it, didn't they? And said he was struggling a little bit. And, it's just sad. But 17 years old, a magical career. Anything else you want to add, mate, before we move on?
No, you pretty much covered that. Just as I say, he was mate. I mean, if you saw you remember Beyond the Mat?
Yes.
There was there was a segment on him in that as well, and it's talking about like how his knees, he shouldn't be able to walk like on them and stuff like that. But it's like, as you said, that would have been like 97, 98, and he still carried on for a long time afterwards, still sort of put in. So he stood the test of time.
Yeah, he was always loyal as well to the people who made it. Like, remember when they had ECW One Night Stand 2005? He opted not to do it because he had already dedicated himself to, I can't remember what it's called, like XPW or something, like a 1PW. It was like a sort of ECW tribute show that they were doing around the same period. They did.
I think it was Shane Douglas. Yeah, Shane Douglas.
Shane Douglas one.
Yeah.
And he offered to do that, and he openly says he actually regrets that because of the amount of money he left on the table to do One Night Stand the first time around. That's why he came back and had that little rivalry, him and Foley and Edge and all that sort of on. It's very, very weird kind of thing. I think it was him and Dreamer versus Edge and Foley when Foley was kind of denouncing his hardcore heritage by being even more violent. It's a very strange way of doing it, but that shouldn't detract from Terry's career. Truly one of them. Obviously, the Funk family, the Funk name is synonymous with excellence and always will be. So, it's sad to lose a legend. It's even sadder when you lose a legend who genuinely has helped pretty much everybody who's been in a ring with him, which is the most special thing you can say about somebody, is that his career is dedicated not only to himself, but the growth of everyone around him as well. MJF had something to say this week, as he always does. He basically wanted to have a crack at fans who think that there's tribalism between WWE and AEW, which is quite a good thing because obviously, naturally, there's going to be a level of tribalism anyway, because people are just going to prefer a product to another. That's just the way it is. For instance, I know people who prefer to buy Nike for Adidas, things like that. It's tribalism is everywhere because of choice. The problem is when the tribalism means that you have to attack the other brand just because you're loyal to a certain brand, which is just silly. Because that loyalty, he was on Busted Open Radio. He said the weird thing in professional wrestling where fans are disrespectful to each other with a degree of animosity that he reveals is not shared by the wrestlers from the two companies themselves. Realistically, the better the two companies are doing, the more money we're going to make, MJF said. So stop arguing. We're all having a freaking blast. I'm watching LA Knight and Cody Rhodes every week and having a blast, just like fans out there watching Better Than You, Baby, having a blast. There's so much great professional wrestling going on, and there's more than enough room for it, clearly. AEW is about to have the biggest crowd, and this is not hyperbole, ever in the history of the sport. When I think about that, it's insane to me. In typical fashion, during the promo, he also kept up his kayfabe by saying that it is thanks to him that they were able to sell out so many things, and even to shed light on why he's relatable to the average fan. MJF revealed he grew up with a fat head of John Cena in his bedroom, a sight he was greeted with every morning. He said, I woke up to that man staring at me, MJF revealed. That's insane. I had posters of CM Punk, Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine, Jerry Lynn, and Buddy Rogers. I live for this shit. And now I get to look into that camera and say, I'm the headliner for the biggest show ever. And it's not hyperbole. It's because people see themselves in me. I'm a part of that dream, and I'm proud to be a part of that dream. So, kayfabe and shoot coming hand in hand with the legend. Do you think the tribalism is literally just a problem between sour, silly fans?
Yeah, I mean I never really, for me as a wrestling fan, like I never sort of bought into it. I've known like people, friends, even like my brother was more like it's WWF and WCW is rubbish, like back in the 90s. It's like just because it's not WWF. Whereas for me, I always consider myself like I'd have a preference, but I did consider myself a wrestling fan, so I didn't hate like just I don't want to watch like them or they're rubbish. You know what I mean? It's like to me, I back then as a wrestling fan, I wanted to watch everything I could. But I don't get it. I don't think it's necessary. And like you say, it seems more like a case of just bashing it because it's the competition, not like because this is your brand. You've chose like I'm going to support AEW, I'm going to support WWE, and then you just criticize them even unfounded. Like okay, let me just complain about sometimes you complain about the same stuff that the other promotion does, but it's because it's that promotion that does it, and it's silly because then it's like you're just blindly insulting things just for the sake of it. Like if there's a genuine thing to pull them up about and you want to discuss it, that's fine. But I just don't get like irrational sort of hate for it. If you don't, to me, if you don't like it, you don't watch it. That's the best thing. But you don't have to sort of like, oh, but we're so much better. I think it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just their way of sort of, they see that's how you have to root for your team and tear the other team down. But I've never really understood. I don't think like MJ was saying, like, it is better to have two really good, like strong promotions, that there is sort of options out there. And it gives us as like, if you're going to watch it, you've got two different, you don't have to watch everything on one show, but you've got enough, then you can pick and mix from both of them. And there's a lot more content for you. So I look at it.
I think one of the biggest problems is that it's never just one section of fans. It's not all WWE fans are scum because they like WWE and all AEW fans. It's never that simple. You have sections of fans who are stupid and just slag off everything and don't watch the other product, which is even more annoying because if you don't watch it, then how can you judge it? I don't watch AEW's product for the most part now because I don't like it. I don't like the way it's booked. I don't like the way it's run. I think it's very spot heavy. And it's one of those things where like people think I hate AEW. I don't hate AEW. I hate the management of AEW. Absolutely. One thing that frustrates me is the fact that there are actually a number of wrestlers I love on the AEW roster. I think MJF is world class. I love Adam Cole. I love Kyle O'Reilly when he's fit, bless him. I love Pac. He's one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. Samoa Joe is incredible. CM Punk is somebody that I really enjoy watching, even though he's not, from a personal standpoint, my cup of tea. But as a wrestler, he's great. I'm one of these people who can discern between the two. I don't care if you're not necessarily the nicest person, because ultimately, if that was that important, Shawn Michaels wouldn't have made much money, would he? Let's be real. Same as Hulk Hogan as well, by the way, and probably every big name in that era, if we're being real. It frustrates me. The tribalism is irritating. But then on the flip side, I hate the fact that neither set of fans seem to be able to handle proper constructive criticism. I will say to people, this is why I didn't like what happened on AEW or even WWE or fucking Impact or whatever. This is why. This is what I personally, and people can't handle critiques or anything remotely equating to the truth anymore. You can hit them with cold hard facts, wrestling fans, and they're one of the few demographics that will just flat out ignore it. It's just the way it is, isn't it? And it's ironic because today's marks know everything, but they're still marks in the way they behave. Have you noticed that? They still behave like marks. They may not necessarily have the knowledge of marks because they understand what they're watching now much more than they did. And that's why the local indies are so special to me, and they'll never, ever lose their luster to me, because there are people like, me and you work for Rumble on a regular basis. Look at how many fans go to those shows, hundreds at every show, who are so invested and just, want to rip Tate Mayfair's head off. And they don't think in the moment. they're not then going on the dirt sheets. I'm going to go on Tate Mayfair's Twitter and see what he's up to. Oh, there's beef. He liked to tweet. No, I don't. Nobody cares about that stuff here as much.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the indies, which is what makes these people larger than life. Charles Crowley's a great example of that. Leonardo Darwin's a good example of that. Guys who are able to transcend their characters. And I just think it's like as soon as you get to mainstream TV, all of a sudden nobody's allowed to enjoy it anymore. We have to be hypercritical marks. And even I'm guilty of that. Absolutely. We're all guilty of that. Both of us are, because we both have podcasts, don't we, where we give our opinions and stuff. But at the same time, I like to think that people like ourselves still enjoy what we're doing, and we love the shows and we love watching it. Like going to All In. Is it my biggest cup of tea? No, I've got to be honest. I'm not that bothered. I'm going for the experience and spend time with my friends more so than to watch good wrestling, because there's no matches there that I care about that much. We're going to break down AEW All In a moment. Anything else you want to add, mate?
No, I think that's really. I think we're on the same sort of wavelength there. It's just not really. I don't get it. You don't get it. It's just
Gabe's raging at the moment, and he's just like
Gabe's like
stuff. It's supposed to be a war.
No, I don't agree with what you're saying. You're wrong. You're wrong. Wrong.
Yeah. Well, you know what I have to say to that, Gabe? Shut your mouth and collect your. Yeah, Mark. Speaking of tribalism, this kind of ties in nicely with it. So obviously, Edge had his final contractual match with WWE against Sheamus on SmackDown last week. Now the rumors are swirling like crazy. So basically, Edge had his last match. His contract's now done with WWE. They did a wonderful job, I think, of giving him a send-off, giving him a tribute, because people were saying that apparently he might be going to AEW, and so why would WWE hype him up? And this proves that WWE isn't always as spiteful and shitty as people think they are. Absolutely, they've done shit things. So have AEW, by the way. But, they respect what Edge has done. Apparently, there is still a contract on the table. Edge put out a video on his, now, we have to call them X accounts now. They're no longer Twitter. I don't know if you've heard.
Okay. I've heard, yeah.
Yeah. So according to the veteran, there are no hard feelings between him and WWE, and he still loves the promotion, describing it as the dream cake. He said, I didn't come at them with some crazy contract or anything. They didn't deny me. I have a contract extension sitting in my inbox. I just don't know what to do. The first time I had to retire, it was forced. This time, the choice is in my lap, and it's a lot harder. Edge went on to say that his match against Sheamus on last week's episode of WWE SmackDown is the highlight of his career. He described it as a special night, and he doesn't know if he'll ever be able to top it. So he needs time to process the experience and think about his next move. There have also been rumors of Edge joining AEW. However, he did not mention Tony Khan or AEW in the video, but he did share some news about his future plans. He said, just know that whatever it is that I do, whether it's Percy Jackson, which is coming up soon, or it's wrestling, or it's sitting in my rocking chair, it's because I'm having fun. And having fun at this stage of my life and raising my kids are the two most important things. So I hope that clears stuff up. So everyone's going to talk about it. Do you think, obviously, bottom line for me is I just want Edge to be happy regardless of what he does.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, I love Edge. Like, Edge is
got a shirt.
So, you know what I loved about Edge is that he would always have great shirts when WWE had terrible shirts. Like, he still does now. Most of their shirts are crap, okay? As a graphic designer, I hate WWE's graphics. And they have some of the worst merchandise I've ever seen. AEW, I'll give them one thing. Absolutely, their merch is so much better. So, it's not even close. But yeah, fucking Edge is just different gravy. We sadly had to watch him call it a day because of his neck 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago now. And 12, 13 years ago, give or take. And now he's back, but now he's looking like he might call it a day again. Do you think he should go to AEW? Do you think he should do one last run with WWE? Or are you happy and content with everything you've seen out of Edge?
I think definitely you could say like he's done everything he needs to do. That could be a perfectly fine ending. I'd probably say like if he's got like WWE, I'd leave it there, like in a way, because it hasn't felt like he's been that involved in the mix. Do you know what I mean? Like I know he had that they gave him a nice big hype match with Sheamus, but it hasn't felt like it's that. I think it's going to be like diminishing returns as long as it goes. He did that, yeah. So he did that, but it's like, what is there really left on the table for it? Like now, in a way, there's still matches that he hasn't had, but I feel like if he is going to carry on, probably be better to go to AEW because it's a fresh start. It's a somewhere new. It'd help AEW because it's another big sort of established star on their roster.
You think so?
That's going to bring some interest, bring some talk. It is. I'm not saying it's the biggest they could do, but it's like add him to it. It's going to get some intrigue, isn't it? People are going to talk about it. There are going to be people like it doesn't feel like. Do you remember even when just like Big Show jumped without even as a wrestler as such? Like
it came out as
felt
like
weird.
For elevation.
Yeah, but it got so much sort of buzz. So I think from that perspective, the more they get of like people that are actually massively established, and it did. Didn't you think so? When Big Show like no one
a lot of buzz. For
no,
me,
talk like online
like has to last more than a week. I think within a week nobody cared.
But it
wasn't like, it wasn't quite Luger 95 or Nitro, was it?
No, the reason I mentioned it is because obviously it's not even a big deal from a wrestling perspective, but people just didn't see it coming. And the fact, oh my God, like, Big Show and Mark Henry, people like that who weren't even like active in WWE, really, going over to AEW is like, you just didn't see them leaving WWE. So the more of those type of people they pick up, it adds some extra matches, it gets some intrigue. I'm not saying it's going to, explode. Look, when was it Christian? When Christian joined WWE, AEW, and me and Kay, because Gabe's a massive Christian fan, and he was angry that I was there. It didn't set the world on fire that he's coming over there. It's a nice extra, like extra get for them.
But they made a big deal out of that. They
did, and it's like
hyping it. We've got earth-shattering stuff, and it's like I love Christian.
And he did live up to it.
He's not the marquee name that lives up to the hype. He's not.
No, whereas exactly. So
it was.
Edge will have more. Yeah, Edge will carry more sort of cachet. But I still like
Edge at Wembley.
Oh, that's true. But it's got to be a quick turnaround if he did.
No compete clause, so he'd only be able to come out and say hello, really, wouldn't he? Like,
yeah, but at least like set the ball rolling that he's going there.
If he has a no compete clause, because ultimately, if his contract is done, he might not.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
If I was WWE. So my dream scenario is if he wants to maybe he wants to link up with Christian again for a bit. If I'm WWE, I'd say, here's our contract, but we're happy for you to maybe go to AEW for 6 months to a year and do your thing. Yeah, I know that.
But what would you do what would you do with him in WWE at this point?
I'd have him win the World Championship one more time and put over a big name on the way out with it.
The World Championship, like Seth's belt.
Well, that's the belt that's intrinsically linked with him as well.
He's
7-time world champion. So he's all in all an 11-time champion, right? So it's not like he needs it. I think it's very frustrating as well. I'm seeing a lot of people online saying, WWE, drop the ball with Edge. Are you serious? Like, in what world did they drop the ball? What, his return? He had one of the most earth-shattering returns at the Rumble ever. He then went on to win a Rumble the following year from number 1, by the way. He main evented WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. But it's that thing of, we only remember the last year, don't we? We always remember just what's in front of us. The Judgment Day wasn't fantastic. But even then, we still got some really cool stuff with the Gangrel Brood entrances. He had great matches. I got to see... Dominic Mysterio, as less than a year ago, turn on him at Clash at the Castle. He was involved actually in some really cool little moments. And do you know what? He was giving more than taking, which is what you should do when you get to that stage of your career. Everyone's like, I wanted to see Edge dominating the roster and all that. It's like, so do I, because I'm a huge Edge mark. But the bottom line is that if you'd asked him, hey, Edge, are you happy with what you did over the last year? It's like, dude, I couldn't, there was the potential of me being paralyzed for life. How about we temper our expectations a bit and also remember that he's a 50-year-old man? So I would say, go to AEW, have your little Edge and Christian reunion again. They did a little bit, didn't they, in the pandemic Rumble, which was a real shame. I wanted to see it, in a different kind of light. It would have been nice if they had more of it. But Christian just had that one return, didn't he? Did the Rumble and then went to AEW. Which was a shame. They should have, if I was WWE, I would have doubled down and brought in Christian for like a year or so. Because I don't think that Christian has been that good and done anything really that much of note in AEW. He just hasn't. Like, he's won the TNT Championship, great. loads of people have won that belt.
Well, he hasn't, has he? He hasn't actually. It's Luchasaurus.
Well, yeah, he sort of. Well,
he's claiming it. He's holding it.
Robbed it.
He's not the actual champion.
Robbed it, like. Yeah, he's. I was about to make a very, very nasty joke at the expense of a British indie company, but I won't. But if Roger Sears is watching, he knows what I'm talking about. So yeah, fucking yeah. I just feel like okay, cool. Do I think Edge going to AEW is a good thing? No, I don't think it's a bad thing either. I don't really care that much. And also, if I'm AEW, do you need Edge? Like, really, you should be focusing on building more of your stars instead of bringing in another veteran, unless he's truly going to be used to smash over a Darby Allin or something like that. What's the fucking point, really? But I will say this, even as somebody who doesn't like AEW, I will absolutely watch Edge and Christian as a reunion on AEW. Like, of course.
So I'm going to say there's your answer. That's why they need, because it will get. It's the same. Like even if you don't really.
I'm only going to watch that for 2 or 3 months, then I'm out again.
But I'll be honest. I mean, what? Because I didn't bother with AEW. Like really, I was aware of it, but I tuned in really for CM Punk when that talk was about him coming in, and then it's like I watch, and then you start paying attention to a few other people, because obviously he's going to fight Darby Allin.
I paid attention to a lot of other people and realised how bad they were, and so I turned it off.
Some are, but some aren't. I think that's the thing, and I think it's like you just because then you've got FTR are there, you've got certain people that are there. You can just okay, I'm going to watch their matches
every week either, and that's another big thing. Like WWE,
but they have been at certain points.
WWE does a pretty good job of making sure all your favourites you see them most of the time every week. LA Knight, for instance.
But I'll be honest, I prefer when they don't do that, because then it makes it a bit more special. I think if you don't see them all the time. Yeah,
but the problem is they have really good wrestlers that are in there in between, where if they wanted to do so. AEW, on the other hand, rolls out Brandon Cutler when you don't get to see these guys.
Wow, we don't see him in a match, do we? I can't remember seeing him in a match.
Because fucking shit.
No, we shouldn't. I don't think we do. He hasn't been sort of featured. I think the only time you see him is doing like the camera thing backstage.
He's a cretin. He's an absolute cretin.
Yeah.
But the problem is,
I get your point.
It's bloated. We don't need more legends. Like, this is me, the biggest Edge fan you'll meet, saying you don't need Edge because you've got enough fucking people in there. He's not going to add more value. He'll get the momentary pop. But do you know what? Show me where they have kept momentum up with somebody they brought in.
So I think that's the big thing. I feel they need to do. I disagree in the sense I think they do need to stockpile like established guys to go with their homegrown stars, but they need to follow needs to be there. Not really. I mean, yeah, they had Bryan Danielson, but he's injured, so he's not really on there. CM
Punk. You've got Chris Jericho. You've got Dean Ambrose.
But Chris Jericho,
John Moxley.
They blended in a little bit more as part of the furniture as well. I think having people that feel I liken it.
So basically, what you're saying is that they're not big stars anymore.
You can still have, but what I mean is like you want. I feel. Do you remember when WCW? Well,
what about Joe?
Retrospectively,
guys like that.
Yeah, Joe and Pat. That's what I mean. You need to stockpile a little bit of that, kind of like WCW did back in the day.
But they already have. I feel like they got loads. You got Punk, you got Joe, you got Adam Cole, you got Kyle O'Reilly, guys who have all made big waves in other places.
Wow, I mean, even Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly not on the big stage of WWE, have they? They never really you wouldn't have said from Raw or SmackDown. I think you need
John Moxley, Chris Jericho, CM Punk, Samoa Joe. But the other thing as well, who else are you going to stockpile? Who's not old? Christian's already there, by the way.
But that's what I mean. Like, Edge can still go, but also I liken it to when WCW back in the 90s when they took over. I know people criticize it, but they brought in Hogan, Jim Duggan, Randy Savage. But that's what I'm saying. That's what they need to do. Obviously, Edge is probably one of the closest ones they can get at the moment that's out there that can add, but he can still go. So there's a plus point for them. He can actually fit in with their audience.
I can guarantee we're going to revisit this when he's been in AEW for 3 months and he's doing nothing.
Hey, see, this is the thing though. I'm not gonna say they'll do it right. I'm saying that is what you need. Like when briefly, it felt like they got CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, all in a short time span. It's like, wow, they're starting to get like actual. Bryan Danielson had just been in WWE and he is still like massively popular. It's like this is what they need to do. They're bringing in a bunch of like the best names they can get on the circuit. They're not going to get John Cena. Yeah, they're not going to get people out, but the best they can get, which are big names. And people are going to criticize it, but it would get eyeballs.
Goldberg
I think what you need to do,
than
and if you could get Drew, because there's still talk about Drew McIntyre, maybe
that's not happening.
Sort of...
Please, he's just come back.
No, but my point being, like, if you
back, he's like, no, you're buying into the dirt. You should know better than that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I saw something, and I don't know if it's true, but I saw something saying that he hasn't actually sort of, signed a long-term contract yet. I'm just saying, look, in an ideal world, and they really want to do it, you want to grab like Edge, Drew McIntyre, Goldberg, people like that, and just
you think
really
Drew McIntyre's big enough star? You think Drew McIntyre would draw big numbers for AEW?
It would make a difference. I mean, he still feels like play. He wasn't that long removed from being WWE champion, beating Brock Lesnar and Goldberg.
Let me ask you a question, because you seem extremely defensive of AEW right now. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Clean, Mr. Politician. Where have they proven to be successful using any of these veterans in the past?
No, they haven't. That's my point. I'm saying.
Why am I supposed to believe this will be any different?
I'm saying that's what they should do. I'm not saying it's going to work.
Stockpiling, if it's not effective, stockpiling's not a good thing then, is it?
But that's what you got to do. You got to stockpile and then use it effectively. That's what I'm saying. If they could do that,
for 4 years, and they still have yet to do it effectively.
And one day, I'm an optimist. I believe one day they will do it.
Now's a really good time to argue for AEW, because you can always come back to, well, we've sold 80,000+ tickets. Absolutely, you have. Very successful. Now go and do it in America. Wah wah.
Yeah, but I mean, that all adds to that. That will add to their. Yeah, let's be fair. To be fair to them, they're only
put on a good show as well. By the way, if they shit the bed and this show doesn't go well, selling. This is the problem, isn't it? Have you noticed how? Do you know what? When AEW started, one of the arguments I always heard from people who didn't want to watch WWE and wanted to get on that bandwagon was, "Oh, do you know what I love about AEW? It's not soulless. It's not about money." What's the biggest argument they're now making about AEW? We've sold more tickets at Wembley than anybody else. So now all of a sudden it is about money when it suits. That's the big problem with AEW fans as a tribalism thing. They are quite happy to just move the goalposts to suit their argument, as do WWE fans quite a lot of the time. But it's that frustration of, do I want to see Edge come into AEW and reunite with Christian, have a little tag run? Who doesn't want to see FTR versus Edge and Christian? I remember Edge and Christian's podcast where they had FTR on when they were in WWE, and they said, "Oh, we could do the old fucks versus the young bucks," which would be very funny. People will want to see Edge and Christian. Oh, I saw somebody tweet the other day. There's a big thing going on. Oh, Edge and Christian versus the Hardys again. Yes, please. Why? They're all old and dead.
Very nostalgic, but it's not.
Fuck off. And to be honest, to be fair to the Hardys, they had a title match against, I don't know if you saw last night, they wrestled Aussie Open. I'm happy for Aussie Open, but the Hardys looked woefully behind them. It was painful. Whereas MJF and Adam Cole will fucking tear the house down with Aussie Open. And I won't see it because I'll probably still be getting in.
You gotta get your skates on and try and catch that one.
Tell me about it. I mean, I won't be offended if you and Gabe want to leave early, but it is what it is. It's frustrating. Other than that, not really much, to be honest, to cover.